and that is by Dr. Ipiana, nawezaje kutulia wakati amefanya, and it's a beautiful, beautiful song, and it's taking us to 24 minutes to the top of the hour. And George from Moore Hills, we join you in prayers this morning that God will remember you, as well as we have declared that yes, he will turn our mourning into dancing, and that is what he will do, because he's our healer and the greatest physician. That is who he is, and we proclaim that healing power, because by the stripes of Jesus we proclaim healing upon your life, and receive that healing, and we await God's move in your life. Amen. Amen. All right, let's now look at what is being reported in the dailies this morning, and we begin with the Daily Nation, and they go with the headline "State Terror." That is what they go with. A report the president handed to Parliament noted a rise in abductions blamed on crime. So a report the president handed to Parliament noted a rise in abductions blamed on crime. And even with no action taken against rogue security agents blamed for killing dozens of protesters during last June's Gen Z protests, there are growing concerns that a brutal crackdown on government critics has escalated. The latest victim of the state-sanctioned abductions is Juja MP George Koimburi. Police claim he stage-managed his attack. It's a story that you can read on page 4, 5, and 6. And there is a big photo there. And they say the spotlight is on Douglas Kanja. Police are accused of being used to harass government critics, but Kenya Kwanza leaders counter that the Constitution grants the Inspector General independent command of the police service, and it was misleading to suggest politicians were directing his officers to settle political scores. And so you can read that, and some leaders in government crosshairs. There is Rigathi Gachagua, John Methu, Cleophas Malala, George Koimburi. There is Jane Kihara, who protested the withdrawal of her police bodyguards. And so that is the story that is covered on pages 4, 5, and 6, and of course the front page of the Daily Nation. Right, Ruto CS's clash over 4.5 billion shillings bombers cash. National Treasury Cabinet Secretary John Mbadi and his tourism colleague Rebecca Miano have disagreed over an allocation of 4.5 billion shillings to renovate the bombers of Kenya, deepening the controversy surrounding a project that reportedly is to be financed by a Turkish firm. Following the clash between the two ministers, MPs have resolved to freeze the budgetary allocation until government sheds light on the matter. And it's a story that is on page number 7. Right. Then I see a woman's 16 hours of horror captain's death in the Indian Ocean. And last Friday, a crew of fishers disregarded a warning to stay away from the ocean and sailed into the deep sea. It was a fatal mistake. That story of disaster and tragedy is covered on page number 22 inside the Daily Nation. And then I see State House hand in Professor Anangwe's resignation from UON leadership. Remember, there is a case there in court, and so you can read that story on page 2. And then conned by a prophet, CA now targets rogue religious broadcasters. A story that is on page number 12 inside the Daily Nation. You can read more in details. And the court holds race to replace Nancy Macharia as TSC boss. Kuna nini pale? You can read that also. It is covered inside the Daily Nation. And NOC Kenya faces 5 cases ahead of June 19 polls. That is in the sports section of the Daily Nation as well. And Kenyan policeman who's cheering earned him a promotion. That's a good story there as well. And you can read it inside the Daily Nation. And Kenyan stars to feature in UEFA Women's Champions League again. So read that in the sports section of the Daily Nation. Right. We can shift gear now from the Daily Nation. We get to see what the Standard is reporting this morning. This is the Daily, or rather the Standard. Allow me to open the Standard, and they go with the headline, "Sliding into Anarchy." And then there is a picture there of the Juja MP who was, after the alleged abduction, he was found in a coffee plantation yesterday in a very poor state. And there is a picture there of the MP. And so the Standard, sliding into anarchy. And the picture there, and they say, "This is a Kenyan MP, a representative of the people, abducted, tortured, and left for dead." That is the story there. And they say, by last evening, Juja MP George Koimburi remained unable to speak, a chilling sign that the current regime's now familiar tactic of abducting and torturing critics may have struck again. Despite official denials, growing claims suggest that that key law enforcement agencies have been weaponized to silence dissent. What is really happening in our nation? That is the story there, and you can read it. And evading diplomatic goof, Kenya holds inauguration of Somaliland liaison office. You read that story. And the National Police Service has distanced itself from the alleged abduction of Juja Member of Parliament George Koimburi. And besieged UON Council Chair claims state wants yes men to run varsity. That's a story that you can get there. And crisis deepens as capitation fails to reach schools. And remember, we are already into the second term. Then also, Rigathi accuses NCIC of shielding president's allies. That's another story there that is of interest to the nation. And this is Gachagua saying that he defies NCIC warning, says warning on 2027 violence. 2027 violence is free speech. Read that as well inside the Standard. And hawkers sue Pastor Ng'ang'a over viral church beating. I received slaps, not blessings. Read that story as well. It's inside the Standard newspaper this morning. And I see, in as far as the sports pages, there is Kenya reaffirms commitment to co-host CHAN 2025. This is despite reports that CAF, the delegation that is in the country to check the state of the venues, was not very much pleased with the playing surface of Kasarani Stadium and the Nyayo Stadium, the two that have been going through renovation ahead of the tournament. Right. The pullout this morning is the Financial Standard pullout. Africa sets hopes on AfCFTA to widen markets. So the swift implementation of the Pan-African Trade Pact, encompassing 54 of the 55 AU member states, is seen as the continent's essential path towards economic resilience. You can read that inside the Financial Standard pullout. And the state agencies pressed to raise revenue. I tell you, there is no resting for Kenyans as the government continues to sort for more revenue. So that is the Standard. The Business Daily, they go with the story, how identity theft racket is trapping Kenyans in tax debt. KRA probe unearths tax evasion scam involving traders, victims' IDs and PINs being used to open companies. Wow. And then, which doctor's bid to take dirty cash fight to Supreme Court fails? Hey, the government now wants to lease out the Mount Elgon Lodge in a U-turn from an initial planned sale of the state-owned hotel. And Vivo Energy Kenya made 336 million shillings from the sale of a fuel-linked government bond in January. That is the Business Daily, and a lot being reported in the newspapers this morning. Grab your favorite copy, get to see what's happening in our nation, different counties, but also as a believer, get to know how to pray for the nation, from the leadership to the governance to the lawmaking process to the different counties. Get to pray for the nation of Kenya. Right about now, we take a short break. This is to pave way for the video of the day.